In October 2015, a young man stumbled into a bar in Ruinerwold, Netherlands, trembling and in a state of confusion. He told the bar worker that he had escaped from a hidden basement where he had spent his entire life. Police initially assessed this as a mental health crisis until they found the farm. What they discovered when they entered would shock Dutch law enforcement. Don't forget to subscribe, because this is one of the most disturbing cases in modern Netherlands. October 18, 2015, 10:30 p.m. Hendrik van Dam, owner of the De Kastelein bar in the town of Ruinerwold, encountered the strangest customer he had ever seen in his life. The man who walked through the door appeared to be in his 20s. His hair and beard were long, unkempt, as if they hadn't been cut in months, maybe years. His clothes were old-fashioned, as if they were from another decade, a worn shirt and pants. But the most striking thing was his wild, frightened eyes that looked around as if he was seeing everything around him for the first time. He spoke Dutch, but with a strange, archaic dialect. He ordered 5 beers and drank them all quickly, like someone who had never tasted alcohol before. Then he started speaking in whispers. "My family, I had to escape. At the farm. Help me." Van Dam felt alarm bells going off. "Which farm? Where do you live?" The young man tried to give an address, but his words were confused. He was clearly under severe stress. His hands were shaking. His eyes kept darting to the door as if expecting someone to be following him. Van Dam quietly called the police. When officers arrived within 20 minutes, the young man was still at the bar, but now leaning over the table, his head between his hands. He said his name was Jan. He was 25 years old, and he had never left their farm in his life. Police initially approached with skepticism. He could be the town drunk or mentally ill, but the directions Jan gave them were precise and consistent. A small farm in an isolated area outside Ruinerwold, surrounded by forests. At 11:45 p.m., 2 police cars pulled onto the narrow gravel road. Their flashlights illuminated the dark farmhouse, neglected, with rotting wooden walls, boards nailed over broken windows, wild grass around the house reaching chest height. The building appeared abandoned, but when they brought their flashlights closer to the ground, they noticed a metal hatch. When they opened the door, cool, damp air rose from the stairway. What the police found when they went down would shock Dutch law enforcement. 6 people huddled in the main room, filled with small, damaged furniture, recoiling in fear from the police flashlights. 4 were in their 20s, 3 women, 1 man. The other 2 were younger, 18 and 20 years old. All were dressed like Jan, old-fashioned, well-worn clothes. All had long, uncut hair. In the side room, a partially paralyzed elderly man lay on a bed. He was in his 60s with a thick gray beard and half-closed eyes. When police approached, the man tried to speak, but the sounds were unclear, incomprehensible. Officer Peter de Vries, the senior officer leading the interrogation, would later describe that moment. "I felt like we had gone back in time, like we were somewhere 50 years ago, not in the middle of the 21st century. No technology, no phone, no television. Just these people in these dark rooms who hadn't spoken to anyone but each other for years." One of the older girls, who would later be identified as Linda, spoke trembling. "Can we go outside? Can we see the sun?" "How long have you been here?" de Vries asked. Linda hesitated as she counted the numbers, as if the concept was foreign to her. 9, maybe 10 years, I'm not sure. Police immediately evacuated the 9 people to safe locations. The initial medical examinations were shocking. All were seriously malnourished. Their dental care was virtually non-existent. Their muscles were weak from lack of physical exercise. Their skin was pale, evidence of lack of sunlight. But the physical neglect paled beside the psychological damage. None of the children had official identification, no birth records, no medical records. For the Dutch state, they officially did not exist. Initial interviews revealed that the children's relationship with reality was severely distorted. Dr. Visser wrote in his report, "Linda said that the world had ended, that everyone except their father had died, and that only the basement allowed them to survive. She was not familiar with television, internet, phones, other cities, countries, or continents. The idea that modern civilization outside the family could exist was completely foreign to her. The younger siblings were even more isolated. None of them had ever been outside. The man who isolated them, Gerrit Janssen, was transferred to Port Angeles Hospital, paralyzed and unable to communicate. Initial examination showed he had suffered a severe stroke several years earlier. His physical condition exempted him from arrest or interrogation, but there was someone else to answer these questions. Josef van der Berg, 58, was the registered owner of the farm. He was Austrian, had moved to the Netherlands 12 years earlier, and had purchased the property on Bremweg in 2007. Locals knew him slightly, as a solitary man who spoke rarely and valued his privacy. Police arrested him on the morning of October 19th. He initially refused to cooperate, requested a lawyer, and exercised his right to remain silent. But as evidence piled up, a picture emerged. Josef van der Berg had consciously and systematically isolated the Janssen family. Police records showed regular trips to the farm property, weekly grocery shopping, supplies from the nearby hardware store approximately every month. During these trips, no one had ever seen anyone come or go with Josef. The most disturbing and strange thing was the bank records. Long after the family moved into the basement, Josef received a mysterious money transfer of 127,000 euros to his account. The transfer came from a Swiss bank account. When investigators tried to trace the source, they ran into Swiss banking secrecy laws. Josef's story was simple and far from satisfying Detective Martijn Brouwer. "I was just helping Gerrit," he said. "He was an old friend. He wanted to live quietly with his family. He paid me to let him use the property. I didn't do anything wrong." Gerrit made his own decisions. The children were his responsibility, not mine. Gerrit Janssen and his wife married in 1985. His wife, Marika, died 4 years later, in 1989, shortly after the birth of their first child, Jan. In the following years, Gerrit had 5 more children: Linda, 1990, Thomas, 1992, Anna, 1994, Sophia, 1997, Lucas, 1999. The children's mother did not appear in official records. No second marriage certificate was found. No healthcare provider had documented the births. But things got even stranger. Genetic tests revealed a shocking truth. The 5 younger children were not actually Gerrit's biological children. The children's DNA pointed to another father. Only Jan was Gerrit's own child. Authorities were never able to definitively determine who their mother was. And for the following 9 years, 7 people lived in underground rooms, their father protecting them from the vanished world outside. The interviews of the rescued children gradually revealed a frightening picture of daily life. Days were structured according to a strict schedule. Waking at dawn, even though there were no windows, Gerrit would tell them the time. Simple breakfast, bread, sometimes cheese. Gerrit taught the children every day. The subject was usually religious, Bible passages, divine interpretations, end-of-world prophecies. "My father told us that civilization had collapsed," Linda explained, "that everyone had died, that only we remained. If we went outside, we would die. Radiation, disease, or the barbarism of survivors. The basement protected us. Portions were minimal. The children were constantly slightly hungry. Night came early, around 8 p.m. Lights went out. Everyone slept in separate corners, minimal privacy. Days blurred together. No seasons, no change, no contact with the outside world. For the youngest, 18-year-old Sophia, the basement was all of life. The outside world was only stories, the deadly fantasies her father told. The idea that another place could exist was almost incomprehensible. Josef sometimes allowed Jan to come up to the upper floors. During these brief visits, for very short periods, he had seen Josef's computer. Gradually, Josef's basement lies contradicted each other. Jan's suspicions began to accumulate. In the summer of 2017, Gerrit became sicker. Stroke symptoms became more pronounced. His speech deteriorated. His movements slowed. For the first time, his absolute authority weakened. In October, when Yosef was not upstairs and Garrett was in deep sleep, Jan quietly climbed the stairs and desperately ran toward town. But the most mysterious part of the events was just beginning. Jan's escape from the basement and the police's subsequent discovery exploded in national and international headlines. Dutch House of Horror attracted journalists from around the world, but the story attracted more. Online researchers, conspiracy theorists, and independent detectives began to pick apart the story, and they found strange inconsistencies in the details. One of the researchers published a detailed analysis investigating Garrett's religious beliefs. Garrett did not conform to any established religious tradition, he wrote. His beliefs were fragments from various sources: post-church eschatology, survival preparedness, authoritarianism. And there is evidence that a small group with similar beliefs existed in the 1980s to 90s. Die Vereinigung, a small, secretive community founded in the Swiss Alps in the 1970s that never exceeded 40 members. The group disbanded in 2001 after leader Martin Schaefer died under mysterious circumstances, but no further information about this matter could be found. Dr. Henrik Müller, a professor of religious history from Germany, offered a surprising perspective on the roots of Garrett's beliefs. Garrett's teaching is not complete madness. Looking at history, there are examples of isolationist millennialism, small groups waiting for the approaching apocalypse. But Garrett's belief was not just waiting for the apocalypse, but accepting the apocalypse as having already occurred. I call this attitude post-apocalyptic isolationism. 5 months after being evacuated from the basement, Garrett Jansen died at age 62. The siblings continue to rebuild their lives. Garrett Jansen's death complicated justice and answers. Garrett never faced charges, never appeared in court, never explained his motivations. Why did he decide to raise children this way? What exactly was his connection to Die Vereinigung? What were the money transfers from Switzerland? These answers died with him. If you want to be the first to hear about more unsolved, mysterious stories, subscribe. Because some truths are buried, dangerous, and disturbingly close.